In this tutorial, we'll be solving a very simple JavaScript challenge. The goal is to determine whether a given number is a narcissistic number or not, also known as an Armstrong number. A narcissistic number is a number where the sum of each individual digit raised to the power of the total number of digits is equal to the original number. Now that we know what we're trying to solve, let's jump into Visual Studio Code and build a function that checks whether any number is a narcissistic number. I'll start by creating a function called narcissistic. Inside the function, I'll declare a variable called sum. This variable will keep track of the total as we loop through each digit, and later we'll compare it with the original value. Next, I'll create an array called numbers array. The purpose of this array is to store each individual digit from the number. Since numbers can't be split directly, we'll first convert the value into a string using toString, then use split to separate every digit into its own array element. For example, if we pass in 153, we'll end up with an array containing 1, 5, and 3. Now that we have our array, we can loop through it. As usual, I'll use a for loop. Inside the loop, I'll add each digit to our sum variable using Math.pow. Since every digit is currently stored as a string, we'll first convert it back into a number using int or parseInt. We'll then raise that digit to the power of the array's length, because the length tells us how many digits the original number has. That's exactly what the mathematical definition requires. Here's something I really like about Visual Studio Code. If you ever forget how a method works, you can simply start typing it, and IntelliSense will usually pop up with the method signature, parameter descriptions, and even a short explanation. It's not a replacement for reading the documentation, but it's a great reminder when you've forgotten something. It definitely saves a few trips to the browser. At this point, our function is basically finished. All we have to do now is compare the sum with the original value and return the result. You can also write this in a much shorter way by simply returning whether sum is strictly equal to value. Both approaches work exactly the same. Personally, I think the slightly longer version is a little easier to read, especially for beginners. Sometimes being a little more explicit makes your code easier to come back at you later. Now let's test our function. I'll print the result to the console. Let's start with 123. As you can see, the function correctly tells us that it is not a narcissistic number. Now let's go back to the website and grab one of the examples. I'll try 407, and there we go. The function correctly identifies it as a narcissistic number. Let's also test 153. That works as well. So our function is doing exactly what we wanted. One last thing. Instead of returning the comparison directly, I'll switch back to using a simple if statement. Both versions are perfectly valid, but I personally think this one is a little easier to read. At the end of the day, code readability is just as important as making it work. And that's it for this video.